In this lesson, we're going to bake out our final normal map. Alright, so now that we are basically down to the end of the road before we get to texturing, we're ready to bake out our final normal map. So in the last lesson, we combined our low poly mesh into one object, so that way we can pack all of those UVs into a single normal map. So that way we can have a single texture for the weapon itself, even though it has multiple objects. So now what we want to do is we want to get our projection cages set up for each individual object. Now it's going to treat this, if we come in and we push this amount, let's say 0.1 on that, it's going to push all of those out at the same time, and I may not want that for everything. Okay, and so what I'll do is go ahead and just hit reset on that. Let's set it back to its original position. And what I want to do instead is I want to go to element mode up here at the top. And if I select element mode, I can choose each individual cage. Now in order to push out those vertices, I need to hold down Control and then select the cage here. Okay, and that's going to convert to the cage mode. Then if I take that push amount, I can adjust that up. I can say 0.1 and it only pushes out just what we have selected. Then I can come in and I can go to face mode by hitting 2 on the keyboard, and I can select those faces again, convert it over to cage mode, holding down Control, go into cage, grab your move tool, pull those out, okay, just like so, and then take care of any of those points that we need to uncover again. Okay, same thing here. I'm going to pull that out and push it over in the X just a little bit. Taking a look at the bottom here, let's take this face, hold Control. Okay, and we didn't have too many of these, so if you have your game mesh is giving you a lot of problems with areas like this, you may want to go ahead and take a look at possibly adding in like maybe another segment or something like that. So just be mindful and stay patient with it. Okay. Sometimes we have to do things that may take a little bit of longer time. So hopefully as you've been following along, hopefully you haven't had to do too much of that. Hopefully I've been easy to follow along with, and if I haven't, I really apologize. This is a big project. Doing highly detailed game weapons like this, there's a lot of work involved with this. So hopefully you've taken several days to follow along with this, and I really appreciate you following along with me and wanting to learn this process. It's really, really fun. I enjoy it so much. And so again, I say thank you for sticking it out with me. And even after this one, we still got a little bit to go. We've got to create some textures and really finish this thing off. You know, and I guarantee by the end of this, if you follow along with all these steps, you'll have a really nice weapon that you can put in your portfolio. And really, I hope you've learned a lot from this. Oops, let's go ahead and select our object again. Pull that out. Okay, looking good. Can't think of anything else. You know, and I never did figure out where that one piece was where we missed, but I think, actually I do know. It's right up here at the top of this. Okay, we'll just leave that alone. Okay. All right, so there we have that. The gun looks pretty good. And if we need to make adjustments, we can always do that. So let's go to the next element. Let's convert that over, holding down Control. Let's push this amount up. Let's do 0.05 on that. That should give us everything that we need there. That one's good. Let's go to element mode, hitting 3, and then we'll hold Control, and we'll go to cage mode, and then we'll push this one out. I'm actually going to turn off that reference geometry. I don't need that. So we'll push this out. We'll do 0.05 on this one. I think we're pretty good on this one. So that one looks good. On the hammer, though, remember these bottom cages here, or these bottom vertices. Make sure we just select those, not any other objects. Let's move those down a little bit, and then we'll actually scale them out in the X just a little. So something like that. Okay. Let's move on to the key lock. Select it, and then we'll go to vertex mode, holding down Control. And we'll push its amount up just a little bit. Let's do something like 0.05. That should give us plenty of room. That looks good. And then, see, we've done all of these. We've done the frame. We need to do this guy right here. And then we'll push that. So I'll do 0.05. And then finally, this cylinder. Let's go ahead and select it. And I think this one we needed to push just a little bit more than the rest. So let's go ahead and convert over to cage. And let's push this. Let's do 0.1 on that one. And that one looks pretty good. There was one area right here. So we need to take, oops, try not to do that. Try not to freeze up the lesson here. Let's go to vertex mode or cage mode. And I'm just going to pull that up. Let's see if we can pull that out in its local direction. There we go. Pull that out in the Z. Do the same thing for all of these. And it just needs to come out a little bit, not a lot. And then once we have that, then we can come in and we can bake out our final normal map. And then we can use that normal map in our next lesson, and we'll bring that into DDO, and we'll get a good base texture for our weapon. So just doing a quick check, making sure that I'm not missing anything else. And let me go to vertex mode. Hit Z on that one. I just want to look at the end of this thing. Let's see. Those points come out pretty far. I don't like how far those are coming out. So I'm actually going to select their faces. Hold Control, go to cage mode. And let me go ahead and take the push amount down a little bit. And just kind of conform that a little bit closer to the mesh. And that looks good. All right, now let's go ahead and turn off projection. Now we've got all of those objects ready to go. You could do some final checks if you need to, but I think we are good. So let's go ahead and bake this out. So with this, let's go ahead and set this to the normal map. I'm going to give it its name, and I'm going to go ahead and call this LP_revolver _NM for normal map. And let's go ahead and give it a size. We want to think about the texture map size on this. Usually I like to do double of what I anticipate, and I might even go 4 times as high as I would as we could go. So 512 was pretty good, but I think it needed a little bit more resolution than that. So I'm going to go ahead and bump this to 2048 by 2048. It's going to make it a large image. And then what I can do is I can actually shrink that down in Photoshop and sharpen up some of the details in that. So it's always good to start out large because you can always resample down a lot easier than trying to res up. Okay, so once we have that, let's go ahead and hit render. But before we do, let me go to options here. I'm going to turn off this ray miss check. Actually, let's leave it on really quickly. Let's do a quick test bake. Let's do 512 by 512. And let's render that out and wait for that to finish. Just checking to see if there's any major red points on this. A few here and there. Oop, there's one major one right there. I'm glad we did a test bake. I also see this one right here. We may have to check to find out exactly what that is. Exactly. I think it might be on this right here. Let's go to projection. Let's go to cage. Select these points here. And with our move tool, let's just pull that down. Let's go ahead and switch this to view. Pull that down. Pull that out in the X. And take this one. Pull it out like that. There we go. All right, turn off cage, do another test bake. You see these red lines right here. That's on the edge of that hammer. That's not a big deal. And I think that might actually be on the hammer too. Okay, so everything else looks good. We've got a couple of places here and there. This is also on the crane, and so I want to do a quick check, and there's that corner right there. So go ahead and make any final adjustments to your cage, and then go ahead and bake out your map at 2048 by 2048. Try to find any of these areas. That's going to be on that hammer, I'm sure of it, but we should be okay. And then you'll go ahead and turn off the ray miss check and render that out. So we'll go ahead and we'll render out our final map in the next lesson, or actually between lessons, and then in the next lesson we're going to take that normal map and we're going to bring that into DDO and get started on our diffuse map for our revolver.